So all guests on ZASLOW Show 2.0 are brought to us by our beer of choice, official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0, Johnny Cuba. We're talking European roots with a Caribbean soul, a refreshing German lager in a can. You know, we were getting down with that Johnny Cuba this weekend. Unbelievable sports weekend. Didn't go our way. If you want to pick up a six-pack of Johnny right now, Sedanos, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. Remember to always drink responsibly. And, of course, Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Joining us here, South Florida Sun Sentinels Dave Hyde, fresh off of the Final Four in Houston. I'm very jealous that of you and all the other folks who were able to attend over the weekend. It's like nothing against where FAU is building toward, nothing against what Miami is currently doing. But Dave, it's pretty likely the only time in our lives we're going to have FAU and Miami in the Final Four. Like that, it didn't go the way we wanted, but it was an all-time South Florida sports Saturday, right?
Yeah, we've never had a team in the Final Four. Now we had half the Final Four. I mean, all my runs here, that has to be the biggest surprise. That and the Panthers in '96 when they went to the Stanley Cup. Take your pick, but it was a blast to be at because I never expected to be there. And you know what? The Jim Larinaga, Dusty May, their people around their programs, they were having such fun. I mean, they had such fun on that run that just being along and then watching and talking to them, it was, Dusty May invited me into his office and we went running around looking at all the facilities that need to be upgraded. Okay. And then Jim Larinaga had me sit on strategy meetings for Connecticut. How are we going to defend the Sonogo, the center? And it was a blast to be around.
How about going into the Final Four? And it's interesting because Dusty May made this comment. I think it may have been on the Levitard show, or I was listening to him on SiriusXM NBA radio, where he said that he's not being driven by money. And I'm like, okay, that's an interesting thing to say. And then right before the Final Four, he signs the extension with FAU, which I'm sure they gave him a nice pay bump. Were you surprised that he decided, hey, I'm in it at least for the next several years. I'm not going anywhere.
Well, this will be an annual question if they make a run. Okay, I was surprised until talking to people and looking around. I don't know what kind of job he wants, if he goes ahead. But there were such slim pickings this year. There was Penn State. There was, and I don't think he had real representation until late in the game. And so, there were factors that came into it. Look, FAU could have 11 of their top 12 players back next year. The transfer portal, the NILs are going to have something to say to that because their players were being recruited, as Dusty May said, even when they're playing in the tournament. So, but yeah, I mean, on the surface, I was surprised Dusty May's back because usually we're so used to guys. Look, when Florida Gulf Coast made a run to the Sweet 16, bam, that guy's out the door to USC. I don't know what job Dusty May wants or what his ambitions are, but there was slim pickings this year.
What was the let's stick with FAU and then we'll get to Miami. What was the atmosphere for the first game for FAU like? It seemed like you had a lot of kids who made the trip. What was the atmosphere for FAU like?
Yeah, the student section was full. My hotel was full of FAU fans, and evidently, I was talking to one of them. There was 4 charters of 150 people, so there's 600. I went in another hotel where I know somebody who's with FAU, not the basketball team, but the whole athletic department, and he was talking about it. FAU had 14,000 requests for tickets, according to the athletic director, and they had 3,400 tickets. I mean, it was so weird. Mattress Mike, this big gambler, he took a full-page ad out in the Houston Chronicle praising FAU. He's their fan. He contributed money to them and all this. So, I mean, you want to look at what a Final Four run can do to a university. Look at FAU went on the national map, and we'll see how applications are affected. I went up there to their campus last week. There were 20 people waiting outside the bookstore to buy stuff, And talking to the manager, said we've never had one person waiting outside the door. So I mean, it was a transforming run for FAU.
Dave, for the FAU fan, I was asking this earlier on the show today. I was stunned, obviously. I was hurt for them. I'm not going to say that I lost any sleep. I'm not an FAU alum. I'm watching this run, but I was so hurt for them when that shot went in. And I'm just wondering, Dave, like, how long after they lose that game does the FAU fan or alum, how long does it take for them to be able to sit there and say, man, what a run? Like, when does that hurt subside and they just realize this was unbelievable?
I think you can hold those two thoughts together, which was because all the ones I talked to did afterwards was, we can't believe we went on this run. And oh my God, we were up 14 in the second half. And it was right there for us to go to the national. Layups were a problem. Offensive rebounds were a problem. I mean, San Diego State had 9 offensive rebounds in a 2-minute stretch there. And then the last second shot. So I think you're capable to hold both those thoughts in you at the same time.
Yeah, I was so hurt for them,
Yeah.
I was so hurt for them. Did you
remember they won a game like that in the opener against Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
So they could have been out of that's the amazing thing about the NCAA tournament. Why, from a sports and drama perspective, it's just so full of great storyline. But they need a last second shot to beat Memphis in the opener. None of this happens.
How many Final Fours have you covered?
I used to go every year from the Final Four to the Masters. So I would guess I've covered 15 to 20. I don't know.
That's cool. That's really cool. That's really cool. Did you have a problem with the closing sequence there? FAU shoot the ball a little bit too early? Maybe take another 3-4 seconds?
Well, I don't think they could. I got to admit, I'm writing on deadlines, so I never went back and look. In the interviews afterwards, the San Diego State coach Dutcher was saying that they expected to get the ball with 7 seconds left. Assuming the miss, a rebound.
They got it with about 10 or 11, I think, right?
Yeah. So they probably could have run a couple more seconds. And on the other hand, if it was Elijah Martin, I believe, took the running layup. He'd been hot all the second half. If he thought that's one of those you can sit there and second guess all. Yeah, they probably should have kind of run a couple more seconds, but I'm not second guessing.
It looked like they weren't going to get the shot off, which happened either the game before or 2 games before. I think it was the game before where I forget who it was that they beat, but they didn't get the shot off and FAU got the stop, and it looked like they were not going to get that shot off.
Yeah, it was. And I'm sitting there right there. This is the last venue I know where the press are still treated well, where we're right on the floor. So the guy. Butler made his cut right in front of me, and I'm thinking the same thing. I'm trying to look at it all, and I couldn't believe that he got the shot off and it went in and all that stuff.
And did you gasp? Like, are you able to control yourself, or did you have to be super professional?
Well, it wasn't professional. I'm on deadline. I have 10 minutes from that shot going in to finish everything, so I'm more right back into my computer. People ask what writers. Oh, what do you think in that moment? I'm thinking about my deadline. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm thinking about how fast I could type on this keyboard here. That's what I'm thinking about. The Canes were never really in it, huh? Like, did you ever get the sense that they were in it? I mean, they cut it to 8 with 9-10 minutes left. And it's all right. Well, this was kind of the same scenario for a moment in the game against Texas, but it never really felt like they were in it.
Yeah, I had the same thought. A flashback to Texas there midway through the second half and then later. But the shame for Miami, what a run they had too, and that final game just wasn't representative of anymore the way they played all that time. I'm credit to Connecticut, but and Larinaga afterwards, he was asked about what were you trying to do to Sonogo, who had 21 points on 9 of 11 shooting, and he goes, "What, you couldn't tell?" He goes, "I couldn't tell either. We didn't follow the, that was a moment, I think, and Larinaga went right to the edge of saying that the stage was too big for them for some reason. Where the first time, we're all hyped up, and you saw Wooga miss 5 3-pointers, and everybody was just a little too amped up. I think of for that moment.
Isn't it amazing? Like I got that impression too, but it's amazing. FAU was never phased. Yeah. I mean, they played the Sweet 16 at the Garden. Like FAU was never phased in this tournament.
Yeah, and they kept telling us we don't see ourselves as Cinderella. And I'm thinking at the start of the tournament, I was like, well, you are Cinderella. It doesn't matter what you think. Small name school, 2,900 seat arena. You go down the list. I went in Dusty May in his office. He goes, look, it's quiet now. I go, what do you mean? He goes, come on upstairs. And he takes me upstairs. We walk by a coach who's walking outside the arena back and forth on the phone, because they have a rule in the coach's office. You cannot talk on the phone because everybody can hear you. So if you get a phone call, you have to go outside. So, and then we go up to the second, and they've turned us a yoga studio into a few practice hoops where they could come up and take shots during the day if the main court's being used. And it's right above Dusty May's office. So he hears the pound, pound, pound of the ball all day. So, to go from that to what they did. But as they said, look, we won 31 games in the regular season, I believe it was. We 31-3. And they scheduled a tougher, they won at Florida. So it isn't a team that got hot at the end of the year the way you could brand a Cinderella. They were hot all year. They were a very good team.
Is there any reason to believe that Miami is look, this has essentially been the case since Larinaga got going, but the expectation every year has to be get to the tournament, win a couple games, right?
Yeah, I think it is now. And I was talking to Rudy Fernandez, who's vice president at the university, who's one of the 2 or 3 guys really responsible for getting money sent into, everybody talked about Mario Cristobal and the football program and all of that. And he goes, nobody talked about the basketball program. And he went down the list. They used to fly a plane 30 seats, cramped. He goes, now they have a full body plane with 68 first class seats. They had money to hire another staff position to take some of the office work off the coaches' plates so they could coach. You got the new weight room, new locker room. You got the NIL money now. Larinaga now has the resources, and it's shown the last 2 years, going to the Elite Eight 1 year, now the Final Four, and we'll see who all comes back, but he could have his whole team back next year essentially, and add to it if they add a big guy to help Norshad Omir on the you don't say, they could be right back in the Final Four again, because that's crazy, but they could have a very good team again.
Any sense of Larinaga slowing down? It doesn't sound like it.
No, I wrote I think he's one of the great hires in South Florida sports history. You look at obviously Shula and Pat Riley are up there, but Jack McKeon with the Marlins, the handful of great hires, he goes there, a program that needed someone who really knew what they're doing, stepping in, and a salesman. Remember, he went around with a piece of boxes to the dorm rooms early in his stay to get fans out there, but he knew how to build a program. He knows how to coach. He knows how to sell. He's a perfect match for that university. The only hope is he doesn't, he's 73 and his energy is off the charts. At some point that slows down. The question is when.
Do you remember what the reaction was when he was hired?
Yeah, I wrote a column. In fact, I went back and looked at it, when they started this run, because I was looking up some stuff. And then my column was, I get why Miami wants Jim Larinaga. Remember, he was at George Mason. They got a Final Four run. They just again got they won a tournament game. But I don't know why Jim Larinaga wants Miami, because this was a program teetering. It's in the big time of the ACC, but it's not in the big time of interest. Look, this is a very tepid college basketball market, right? I mean, that's saying it nicely.
It's one of the worst.
Worst every year. The Final Four ratings are. I'm curious where they are this year, but but look, just like Dusty May, FAU had 7 sellouts at the end of the year. 3,100 people, standing room only, in a 2,900 seat arena. Those are the 7 top attended games in FAU basketball history. And you go to Miami, and Jim Larrañaga is getting that 8,000 seat Watco Center sold out now. And so, he's got it up and running there.
Really cool. Really cool weekend. I wish we could have. I wanted to have the scenario today, Dave, where I had to strongly consider, do I get on a plane? Do I go? I wanted to have that problem on Monday morning. Should I go? Should I watch? Should I go to the game? What an amazing weekend, right?
Yeah, it was almost, you had to look up. I remember thinking, going to the Final Four, Miami and FAU. I mean, Miami would have been just unlikely from a historical perspective. I've never been to cover a team in one of our teams in the Final Four. Now we have this other bizarre story out of FAU. It was a blast. It's what makes sports fun.
Really cool. Really cool. Thanks a lot for joining us today, Dave. I appreciate it.
Okay, Jonathan. Good talking to you.